All right, call the February 10th, 2021 Capital Improvement Committee meeting to order at 6:41 PM. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. There's two sets of minutes out there, one for January 27th, one for February 3rd. If you looked at the town's website, the one that's labeled February 27th is really January 27th. Just a mislabel on the web page, but the minutes have the right date on the top of it.
I make a motion to table the approval of minutes to our next meeting when we have a quorum.
All right. We'll table the approval of the minutes till we get a quorum. Maybe somebody will pop in on this meeting. If not, we'll do it on the next one.
And Stuart, today I sent you, Catherine sent me the February 3rd, last week's minutes.
Yes.
And I sent those along. And Catherine, do you have the January 23rd minutes?
I haven't, if Heather, I had to ask her again to send me the recording because when I click on the link, it says I don't have permission to listen to it.
Okay.
So trying to figure out how I can hear recording.
Have these been put on YouTube or not?
No, this was on Google Drive.
We may be able to. It may be just an audio file that we can put on there. So I will look into that because it's not a video file. It's simply audio.
Oh, okay.
All right. Thank you.
All righty. So we'll have some pending minutes to work on later. Item 3, present to speak. Is there anyone present to speak that's not otherwise on the committee? If you have anything to say, you can unmute yourself and start. If not, we will continue to the next item. Going twice. Alrighty. Additional plan discussion of year one. Is there anything left to bring up in year one?
My feeling was the only thing, if we got out to years 4 and 5 and realized that we just had to reshuffle some things, then we'd come back to year one.
Yep. So I believe the timeline is the selectmen have to include this in their budget plan for at least for year one, which I believe they've already started working on.
I would say the last meeting for us to approve this would be the last Wednesday in February so that it could go to the Board of Selectmen at the very latest, Monday, March 1st for our meeting.
Okay.
As long as we have a quorum next week on the 17th, then we could approve it. If you approved year one, you'd be able to incorporate it.
Yeah, it would be at the same meeting. It would be that March 1st meeting. We present to the Board of Finance on March 4th. So it just means a little bit longer before they get our final budget.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you should all have a copy of the latest spreadsheet as of the end of the last meeting that got sent out if you want to follow along that way. And or Donna can continue to share her screen of the spreadsheet as we try to finish out year two.
I'm working my way through the million different Excel spreadsheets I have here. Stuart, the one you sent out at 9:12 this morning is the latest, right?
That's correct. That's the one Donna sent me the end of the after the last meeting.
Oh, it's the same as that one. Okay.
Yep.
Right. Thank you.
Well, she sent one out immediately, but I think the one I sent is the latest.
Gotcha.
It should have a year one total on line 143 of 645,035.
That's what I'm seeing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm using the one from this morning.
Yep, there you go.
Yep.
That's what I'm looking at as well.
Okay.
So I think we got down to line 106, which was the Village Hill Drainage Phase 1. And that's where we put the excavator lease back in hopes that some work would actually get done. So the next one, I guess, would be line 116. Installs stormwater treatment chamber, which I believe is at Public Works.
Yes.
That's one that's been sitting around for years, and DEP hasn't come and knocking saying we want it now. So the age-old thing is, do we push it out? Do we wait for the salt shed? Whatever's gonna happen with that. Is it something that we need to do in year 2?
I think it's something that we should move forward on. And we're looking at low SIP funds for that currently.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good low SIP project. Kind of falls within the dollar amount of what
And if we
goes
could
on
get-
there.
Yeah, if we could get the salt shed done and this done, it would take care of a major project.
Then you kind of be hopefully done up there for a while
Yeah, I think so.
for doing stuff. So if you want, we'll leave that in for now. I don't think we have anything else coming out of low SIP that year.
We did
And
put the village, did you mention the Village Hill? The
Yeah.
continuation of the project.
Well, yeah,
in low SIP.
so looking at the first table, 2 sources worksheet, as I learn my way around there, that's where the 70,000 of expenditures is in there. The expected addition of 50, 70, 59, so it doesn't kill it brings the low SIP fund balance down a little bit, but not terribly. And we don't have anything in low SIP the next 3 years anyways. So I think we leave those there. Wellington 1 driveway repair. That's fixing those aprons under the doors kind of thing. Somebody had asked when they were down here, could we incorporate that into the addition financing and hold off till then? It's going to be tearing up some of the parking lot anyways.
It seems like something that should happen sooner than that, especially with the amount of gap you have and the heat you're losing.
Yeah, but
I'm
that,
someone
it's
who was
actually, it's the water
standing in-
ingress that gets us. When it rains out, the water comes inside the building.
I can only imagine, Stuart. So when we did our on-site visit in January, I happened to be standing right in front of probably the worst spot there. And the air coming through there was incredible.
Yep.
So you're already in just a giant garage. There's got to be a loss of heat, but I can only imagine the water coming in there.
So Stuart, you're in columns AD and AE, right? Year 2?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, I thought we had finished year 2.
Now we
well,
only got to the open space. I'm waiting.
Yeah, there's no funding sources attached. Actually, we skipped one.
Oh, right.
The
Yep.
open space preservation, we didn't put a fund source on, and same thing with
Right.
driveway repair.
Got it. Yep.
So to me, that continuation of open space funding is got to be tied to whether or not the grant and the project they're asking for this year happens, right? If that doesn't happen, then they haven't hit at that fund, right? They're not taking those additional dollars from that fund. And this is meant to replenish in that fund. So I see them a little bit tied together. And when we look at where we left off last week, and we left off knowing that we were really taking a big hit in the general reserve. I don't know.
I mean, if the assumption is that it's going to go through in year 1 to purchase that new property, then you're right in terms of that continuation of that plan would be to throw 15,000 back into that fund again.
I'm not opposed to the purchase of open space or replenishing that fund. But when we look at the conversation of what to do with our fire departments and those facilities that need work, and our schools that need considerable projects done, and the possibility of a renovated or new school project. And we know we just don't have the funds for all of it. I'm not sure where we come up with funds for open space right now.
I mean, they've certainly been very patient for years waiting for somebody, but they also hadn't come to the table with wanting to buy anything either.
Right, and
So
that
the-
stays in the plan, but it's, coming back at it, I just, we're having to weigh out, repairing some vital items within our schools if nothing else moves forward with that project, or moving forward with a project, a school project. Again, don't know what that will look like. So. What you sent.
We could, let's see.
Could we move it off 1 year? and
Well,
kind
the
of
rest of
push-
the years are filled out with the
right,
15,000 a
and so
year
just push,
anyway, so
like skip a
anything-
year.
we would just zero that out for year 2. And it's still in the next 3 years after that. Is that something you like to do, Erica? Zero that one out?
That's my suggestion. Again, it's want is not really, it's not necessarily something I want to do, but I think we know we just can't fund all of these and sustain our funds. If we're not putting enough into the general reserve, there's at some point where we're not keeping it sustainable to do projects with.
Christina, Mike, any thoughts?
No,
Nobody wants to be the one to say it.
I'm okay with that idea. I mean, I think open space is a great idea, but I agree with Erica saying that we're trying to balance lots of needs.
I think for us, the biggest question in the air are the hundreds of thousands of dollars. At the end of the day on this plan equals somewhere in the millions of school projects versus whether or not a larger school project will come across. And so we have to put those in the plan, assuming there is no new or renovated building.
Yeah.
Because they have to be repaired.
Okay, so done on AD 121. Just zero that one out for that year.
Yes, I got it. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, good.
The driveway repair for Wellington Firehouse, I'm trying to look on the fund sources to see how our balance is running with that.
There wouldn't be, if I'm looking at this right down, there's not enough funds out of LoCIP.
There. 1 year 2, about 100. Yeah, you could maybe squeak it in, but then bring that fund down to 0 pretty much.
And the addition estimates were the numbers that were given to us today from the governor's proposed budget.
Okay. Is that much?
They're solid numbers.
Is that a change from last year at all, or is it what you expected?
No, it's everything. We're actually up $134,000, and that's a grant to schools.
Okay,
So they level funded everything else.
I guess that's good. I don't know how he does it, but good.
I think we
Yes,
talked a
that's
little
good.
bit about that before.
Um,
He has a revenue source plan.
So where do you want that driveway repair to come out of? There-
How about the recovery fund?
I was looking at that. We have Don, is that got the estimated leases in there for the upcoming leases for the
Yes,
Wellington Hill SCBA and the service truck and the ambulance? Those are the three things we plan to take out of there.
it's the ambulance lease, yep, the SCBA, yep, and first response vehicle for the hill.
So this will put that driveway under Fund 17 for now.
Okay,
So, as you know, the revenues can go up or down, but we've usually cleared that 145 number every year. This past year, we made, I think, 10,000 over that. Um, Erica, you had some comments at the last meeting about line 138, the
Okay.
surveying and architecture of the church.
I don't know that we even talked about it last meeting. We talked
Well,
about it.
you mentioned about being private property or something like that, and
I think I did, right now it's not a town-owned building and I think to Mike's point, when his suggestion was to move off some other things, the town hasn't decided where they were going with our fire department. And I think that's part of an overall discussion. I did speak with Peter Tanaka, who's the chair of the Emergency Services Committee, and asked him, encouraged him to call a meeting in this forum. I think he's a little reluctant to, but I think we can conduct town business in this manner. I think it's okay to conduct that meeting in this manner as well.
yeah,
So I don't know if any of you had heard from him. He did say to me he was planning to reach out to both departments, but I encouraged him to call a meeting and get us back to the table so we can know, we can have an honest discussion and see what direction the town's going, because we're kind of in limbo here with big asks on the table from both departments.
Erica, I had a similar conversation with Peter in my position as Board of Finance Chair, and discussed all the same things you're talking about, the need to get the planning and coordinating process going. And I agree with his concerns that because of the sort of emotional impact in this whole topic, that meeting in person is probably more valuable, but that we've lost a year of progress, and that's important at this point, that we try back to some coordinating and helping to plan a proper direction forward for the town.
Yeah, and this, this is a larger topic for another day, but although this isn't the best forum to meet in, it is a pretty open and transparent process for our residents to be part of, because they can go back and see all our meetings and they can really, attend a meeting without having to be in person or just reading what, was put on paper. So I think there's value to starting the conversation.
I agree.
So I see that, along the bigger picture. Maybe it's time, I know at the end of the year, Stuart, if you look back on page 1 of this sheet, line 24, 25 has, you started to see a note and bond for things. We were looking at some things just as we stopped meeting last year, kind of a bigger out of the box picture, and start to say, look, if we're moving in a direction and we're looking at doing some big items, do we lump them all together, and what does that cost look like? And I think this falls into that same conversation.
Yeah, if we're gonna bond a large chunk of money and call it municipal improvements or whatever we're gonna call it, then we really need, that's gonna commit the taxpayers to a lot of years of payments. We should do the best possible planning we can do for that.
yeah, and then there's always mixed feelings about combining projects. That, one would say that, gee, if a lot of people want the school, it'll drag the other projects in, for a positive thing. But if somebody doesn't like one of those projects and that crowd drags them all down, I know Stafford has tried it a couple times, doing some big bonds of, school renovations and new firehouse and so on and so on, and they got shot down. And the question is, if something like, a municipal improvement plan gets voted down, why? Was it the sum of all of them that was bad? Was it any one individual one that was bad? Or do you let them stand on their own merits and do them one by one? And there's no right or wrong answer to any of that kind of thing. But I think it's fair to move in year two out, if we push that 10,000 at line 138 out a year.
I I know we're all fans of spending money on studies, but at some point, I think we need to spend money on a study of municipal facilities as a whole. And that's going to give us the best idea. The thought that we could all just each, put our 2 cents in it and know the best plan is not realistic. I see Christina shaking her head a little bit. Like we need someone with knowledge to come in and tell us this, if we want to present something this large scale to residents and voters and taxpayers. We need to give them the most adequate information about our facilities.
So we're looking at the yellow number there in AD line 143. The good thing is you've got basically $111 growth. The bad news is it's only $111 growth. Are we funding enough of the town's needs? Or are we better off keeping it flat year to year? I'm not sure. I think it does a lot of bad stuff for the out years.
Well, as we go down year three, if there's something that's not too big, we could push back to year two. That'd be fine. Some of these big ones, just looking at the bottom of year three there, you got the soccer, the lighting for the soccer field at 325. The Liska Road project, redoing that bridge culverty thing, what it is for 750. I mean, that 750 isn't gonna work in a 1-year payment. I mean, our savings bank isn't that big to do that Liska Road project, let alone Schofield and the rest of the Hill, we'll see, but so some of these biggies are gonna pile up no matter what, and then, like you said, we keep talking about doing a bond to try to clear some of those off. And I think the last road bond we did was 91, I think, for Moose Meadow Road. Oh, and Turnpike Road, you nibbled away at that using mostly state money, I think. So it's been a while since we've done any sort of bonding for big road projects or something like that.
And it hasn't been a while since we say we're going to do a bond. We say it every single year.
Yeah.
In year 4 or year 5, we're going to do it. And we never
push
do it.
off.
Yeah.
Do we know what it should really look like? Right. And I think a study is going to tell us some of that. So.
Well,
at some point, putting them off is only costing taxpayers more dollars.
yes, because the only way to actually save the money is to never do it. Other than that, the price goes up every year. But as you all know, one of the biggies sitting out there is the school. And where that fits into the big picture in this. So let's go down year 3. If we see something to throw back into year 2, that's fine. And
So what do we still have?
I think we finished year 2.
We don't. We still have $100,000 there and designed to.
A new
Wellington
firehouse,
Hill
new
Fire Department
Wellington
Design
Hill.
and Engineering New Firehouse.
Oh, that one I talked about. We'll push it. I mean, you gotta do the line 138 probably a year before you get into 135.
Right.
Um,
So
So
we push
that's
that
like-
out 2 years,
I would say push the 10,000 out to year
24,
3
25.
and the
We'll have to push-
100,000 to year 4. You're gonna leave it in there. Keeping in mind, you've already started that project with Wellington One of doing the design and some of the engineering on that project. So do you want to have 2 projects running at once, or do you want to finish one and then go after the other one?
Well, that goes back to the whole planning together thing. This is, this has had years of people moving one in front of the other in front of the first, back and forth. So this is where we really need to have a cohesive, agreed upon plan.
Well, this was the plan a few years ago when they funded the engineering for Wellington One.
Yeah, well, I don't think we have enough time tonight to get into
Yep,
all that
okay.
history, including the fact that it puts us in a tough position because we're both fire department members and because you're a paid fire department member. It gets complicated.
I don't think being paid has anything to do with it. I'm referring simply to the motions that other committees have made that I wasn't even on to move that project forward years ago.
Well, this is why it should be planned and
There you go.
we should have a joint planning effort.
So would you agree for tonight to move the 10,000 to year 3 and 100,000 to year 4?
Well,
I think at least.
I think in the spirit of planning, yes.
Okay,
Come back and revisit it after the planning is done, right? It could go to year 2, it could go to year 12.
Yeah, but and to Stuart's point, Mike, and whether we agree with it or not, at some point, the people at the table before we were sitting here did move forward a project and put money into it. And so the town has done nothing since they did that point. So we're either gonna have to say, no, we're not doing that. We're scrapping the whole thing. So,
Part of that was to understand the scope of what the project was. And now we know it's a multi-million-dollar project. So, I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there were committees before that. There were meetings at the Wellington Hill Firehouse with the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, public meetings, where the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance looked at property that the Wellington Hill Fire Department wanted to buy 15 years ago and said, when we pay the library bond down, you guys can get in line then. And let us know as it gets closer. So there were decisions made. We could go back through minutes or decisions of the last 25 years. And if you select the right time, you could find anybody who said anything.
Yeah. And so at some point, the town and not the fire departments, I think, is what's going to have to decide. And nobody at this point has been wanting to put in that place. And it puts all of us in a continuous precarious position. So
Right,
we'll just
so it
keep
would be
kind of putting them
beneficial.
off.
It would be beneficial if the 2 fire departments did a better job of planning and presented something cohesive to the town. Then the town could say, we like your reasoning or not.
I agree. Catherine, just watch, if you can watch for Carrie, she should be joining us as soon as she gets her IT issues fixed.
all right. Anything else for year 2?
Yeah, can you tell me, Donna, what we have into, oh, if you scroll back up, what we have going into the reserve that year?
190,889.
298.89. Okay, so significantly more than this year, which can help us. Okay.
Okay, any other discussion on year 2? No one's going, guys? All right, year 3, which is sitting at about $2.3 million.
Just when you thought you're making progress.
Well, we just found the cans that we kicked it down the road.
And here they are.
There's a big pile of cans here.
I see some more leases came off the top, so that's a plus. A few more went on the bottom. We'll ignore that. All right.
And the ones that are like, 45,000 and under, those are the easier ones. It's the 750 for Liska Road. It's another lease for another full-size dump truck if you want to go that route.
I argue a little bit, Stuart, because right down at least to line 70, 71, all of those would have to go in. We can't use LoSiP funds for those. Really, the reserve fund is all we're, and 930 is all we're looking at. So those are a lot of projects that if we had a school project would not need to be done.
Erica, just refresh me.
Yeah.
When's our next school meeting?
Monday, the 21st or 22nd, whatever that
Thank
last
you.
Monday of the month is. You're welcome.
Okay, I just didn't have it in front of me here. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, there's over $225,000 of school maintenance projects in there. Whether or not you would put those off till, the crystal ball is how soon would the decision be made on a school?
We've had one meeting, Stuart. There's no. I'm not going to touch that one.
So the timeline on that is important because there's, like I said, there's a ton of school projects in there of exhaust fans and heating stuff and air conditioning, paving.
I would hope
sidewalk.
by this time next year, we will have made some progress in what direction to go forth in. Whether it's bring something to the town or
So if you
one way or the other.
temporarily disregard the school projects, except for Liska Road and the fire department radio project and the soccer lighting, there's not a lot there. Like I said, you got 65 there, 15 for the open space, a whole pile of school stuff. So I don't know how many decisions you can make on year 3 without knowing what's going on with the schools.
But I think the reality, Stuart, is we don't know where they're going, so we have to decide what this plan looks like.
And hopefully a year from now, we have some ideas and maybe we can start tweaking this plan accordingly. But even a year is maybe a little optimistic, right, Erica?
Oh, I think it's very optimistic, but we should have made some progress, I would hope.
I would hope.
After a year of meetings, because the
Right.
conversation the committee had was to start once a month just right now while we're in the heart of budget season and gathering information. And I think things could probably move in a more forward direction if funding comes about to hire a consultant.
Yeah, I think it's important, again, on my soapbox about proper planning. I think it's important that that gets rolling too.
Yeah. And that group, you were there, you're part of that group, Mike. There's definitely a want to move this forward in one capacity or another. So.
Yeah. Not to go far afield, but I was impressed through the introductions with the broad resume of the people on the group. I think we have a great group.
We were fortunate with those who were interested in being part of the discussion with a vast array of knowledge.
So how about year 3, line 105, Liska Road? Throw that into that bond anticipation note that they had set aside for the plan for the school.
So we've got a bond anticipation note in your 3, and 4. Just so you know.
So, it isn't like you can do half of Lisco Road Bridge. It's all or nothing. Hopefully they'll get that engineering done this year to have a little more accurate number in terms of, is it
Mhm.
750 or is it 500 or is it 1 million? But there's no way that 750 is coming through our regular capital reserve or local funds.
Yeah, that would be a huge chunk.
And even with, LOSIP, and if steep even reappears, I don't think we're gonna get any dollar amount there that's gonna be significant if that 750 is accurate. So I would say move that 750 onto that bond. Because it sounds like that's more of a priority than doing Schofield. Well, it impacts probably fewer people, it's more critical. If that thing falls down, they can't get out of their houses any too easy.
Mm. Erica, I'm assuming no, but has there been any conversation since our last meeting about the Depot Road Bridge at the Tolland line?
No,
I am curious.
it made it to the top of my list today. I just didn't get to it.
Well, that's
I will tell you that I did get to it there, but there's always something that comes up. I notice on here, I don't see the money for Schofield. Never mind. I see it all the way out on year 5. Sorry.
That's one, if you're doing a bond and thought we could get lots of money, you'd bring that back to year 4 or something like that if you were to move ahead with something big.
Christina or Donna, if there were steep funds available and we were able to do one of these projects with those funds, do we have to budget the entire amount of the project for steep?
It's reimbursable, so
So,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
That's what I thought. This lot zip
But,
one is the
know,
has thrown me because
But within the course of the year, it's the same amount of, I don't know that you need to put it all in because it's, for planning purposes, you're not spending all that, in
right.
the,
But do you have to show all of it available?
yeah, probably. I don't
'Cause
remember.
I think with low SIP money, we have to show it all available and then they reimburse.
Yeah. I don't know. Donna would know better than me.
Yeah, because with the low SIP, you're showing that as an off budget expense anyways, and not something coming out of, local funding.
Or do we have to actually encumber real funds?
You don't now, I believe, look at
Right.
line 88 and 89. Actually, that's 1, 2. Trying to think the other projects you put through low SIP in the past. Yeah, you don't show them coming out of the capital reserve first and then putting low SIP money back into it. You just treat it separately.
But we have to go to town meeting for actual appropriation.
Oh, yeah.
Of dollars,
Yeah.
so we're encumbering those dollars.
Yeah, but you're not grabbing them out of capital reserve first. You're simply listing the purposes
We are
of this
encumbering them
plan.
out of a general fund.
You just list them as coming out of LoSiP. If you look at the the fund sources page, the first worksheet, line 170 to 173, the town office building basement floor is simply marked as coming out of LoSiP. You don't mark it as coming out of local funds and then.
Right, I agree for purposes of this plan, but when we do those projects, Stuart, we are actually appropriating real dollars
Yes,
at town meeting. So they must be encumbered from the general fund, Donna?
They're, for LoSiP, they're actually money that we have in LoSiP.
But, right, so, but steep, how would that work? The same way?
So
'Cause it's all
that's,
reimbursable if we were to get a steep grant,
yeah, and that's a good question because the salt shed, we have the salt shed money
right?
physically in our bank account and we're just waiting now to spend it. So I just think it
Okay.
depends on the grant. If it's
Okay.
going to be paid in one total upfront or if it's going to be reimbursed.
Okay, thank you.
so. So we moved the 750 for the Liska Road out to the bond. Only gets us about a third of the way where we need to be.
Can we
I
put
would prefer-
the top of that? Oh, no, it's not the top of the sheet, it's top of my sheet. Can we put the line 117? Bus lot paving, can we put that to LoSiP?
Yes, as I don't think we have anything applied to LoSiP that year. So, line 139, the soccer field lighting. I would at the very least push that out another year.
I would agree too.
I think we pushed it here, didn't we? Oh, no, we
Yeah.
pushed the walking track lighting.
Yeah.
Sorry.
For what I would expect that they would get from increased rent of the field, because of lighting will not in about 4 or 5 lifetimes pay for itself in
Right.
lighting costs. Maybe other reasons to do the lighting in terms of capacity, especially for local teams and such, but 325 just to get a little bit of rent money.
Yeah, and if the other soccer association develops the property on the other side of the Roaring Brook, and it happens that they end up taking away demand from our field, then that would be even, you know, that would make it even worse to say we can use the 325 to handle more games and then find out we need less games because the so much of it is happening down the road. I don't know what that answer is, but
Yeah, unless that would turn into football at some point, then you have a little more use for it. But
right.
the 325, I don't see happening, even in year 3.
Donna, would the LoSiP fund sustain the 65,000 for walking track lighting?
And did you put the bus lot paving under LoSiP as well?
She just did
I
that.
did.
So it'd be 105,000 for the year with only 57,000 coming in. So I think you could do one or the other of those, but not both out of LoSiP. Unless you wanted to push the track lighting out a year and put that under LoSiP that year. I don't think there's anything coming out in year 4 for LoSiP.
So I I see $67,000 coming out of LoSiP. Is that what you see, Stuart?
In which year?
Third year.
Well, we're just trying to do the 65,000 plus the 40,000 for the bus paving. So that'd be 105,000 for the year. So I don't think that's gonna work.
I think the
Very
only
well
thing we'd
for
put to
Rosewood.
it was 40,000 so far.
40,000.
There's,
Okay.
there's something else. Donna, what else do you think you have in there that's, where's the other 27,000?
40,000. That's
Oh, that's
has to be reserved
reserved.
funds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not it. So
Okay.
is there 27 somewhere else that they created that number you had, Donna?
No, I think I clicked on the assessor read by mistake.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the question is, can $65,000 be charged to LoSiP? Right, for which project?
Well, it was originally 40 for the bus lot paving.
Yep.
And I think Erica floated the idea of adding in the 65 for the River Road
Line
track
140.
lighting. But that's 105,000. You're only taking in 57 for the year.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah, uh-huh,
that's not gonna work. So I think either
Right.
gonna, I would suspect the bus lot paving would be more of a priority. And if we push the track lighting out 1 year and put it on LoSiP, at least at this point, there's nothing else taking up any LoSiP money for year 4.
okay, I'm with you.
All right, well, we're down to 9:38 now.
No, we're doing good. It's better than we're doing most years.
So what's the majority of that?
The 227 for the fire department radios,
Yeah, that's a big one.
that's a big one.
In
Oh, that-
fairness to the fire departments, that is something both departments seem to have come together on. And that certainly goes to my desire to see things being planned together.
And I would ask if steep funding becomes available in whatever year, that perhaps that project could be thrown at it to get at least one heck of a down payment on getting half of that done.
Which one?
Line 128. It's getting the 800 meg radios for the fire departments. Eric, in the budget from the governor, are they still expecting 128 for steep, or is it too early to tell?
No, it's the 57,859.
For steep,
Oh, for steep is
Steep.
this year. And that's already been,
right, which you already got it for,
I have not seen steep going forward. It's
okay,
next
so
fiscal
that
year.
didn't show up at all?
No,
No,
No.
okay.
So that takes us down to 710,903, which, I mean, it's a little bit of a jump from year 2, but seems like reasonable growth considering.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd feel okay with leaving year 3 at that for now, since
Yeah.
we're going to be revisiting it a year from now as year 2.
And like I said, big thing is those school projects for all the fans and
Yeah,
PCs and so on and so on. Some of which may have to be done anyways, but the whole school locker replacement for 20,000. It's not a huge number, but
adds up.
if you're not going to continue to occupy that building, it's 20,000 you don't have to throw at it.
Donna,
Yes,
when you're done moving numbers, let me know, because I have a question for you.
I'll be right back.
I'm ready for your question.
So, as I watch you move the numbers very deftly about your sheets here, would your sheets benefit from page to page formulas, or does that mess you up somewhere else if that doesn't work? So like if you change something on this table 1, page 10 here,
Yes.
couldn't you make a link, a formula link over to your table 2 sources to correct it? Or would that create some other problem?
There is a link. These numbers on the bottom,
Yep.
like this $40,000 from LOSUP in 23-24 is linked.
Oh, that does automatically
23-24. Yep. So
Okay.
23-24. I would have expected to see 40,000 on line 85.
Hmm.
Let me just see, but there's a link there
Huh. Yeah.
to, I'll see where it's linked to. AQ 150.
AQ 150 has nothing in it.
Yeah, because that's year 5.
Nothing on that. So the link is working.
Let me just check that because this is 23-24. Okay, let me just reset the link to 23-24 LOSUP. So 23-24 LOSUP is $40,000. Okay, there is the link. Should be a positive
is.
number.
Yep. Oh,
Make it a, there it is.
bam. Look at that.
Okay, so let's check 24-25 for LOSUP. And we
Yeah.
have 65,000.
Correct.
Yep,
Yep.
it's updating.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that brings us to year 4.
Can I
Ooh.
see, can you scroll down to see what year 2 looks, year 3?
Year 3.
Okay, 700.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so
But did we assign anything to all those school projects? We still have so many things that have no assigned funds. Or did we?
no, we
No, we
moved
still-
the school projects to
All of them.
24-25.
Okay.
And then these, except for the tile floor. So this one could probably go if all the projects are going, you know, for consistency. Put that over there. And these other ones are local funds. So that has to be 930.
Okay, so our 700 is about to jump up.
690. Put so
Lines 133 and 138. You want to throw those at Fund 17 for now?
sure.
Subject to future planning purposes.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
The lease for the big fire truck comes off in year 2. So we don't go out and buy something
On
big.
17, right?
Yeah, so assuming we don't go out and buy anything big, revenues stay where they are, something like that would probably be doable. Putting those over to 17.
Okay, Stuart, that leaves one project without a funding source, and that is the open space preservation. Local
And is it-
funds,
Local funds, yeah.
okay,
Yeah, I mean, we're
Okay.
still way down. We're at, even that still only takes us up to 670.
655.
I know it's too early to tell with the school building committee, but on the uh, chance that the new school thing doesn't go through, I believe Plan B was renovating one or both schools. Is that correct? Is that kind of fallback?
Well, so I
Please
don't,
flip the
there is
slide.
no plan.
Yeah,
So it's not as though a plan would fall through and we fall back
an
on something.
option from the
An
previous study.
option, so the
Yeah.
Board of Education, when they moved it forward to the selectmen, were recommending a new school. And so it's, renovating is still something that the committee will look at, but the recommendation.
What I
from the
was
board
thinking
was
that
one thing.
on the slight chance that the new school project doesn't go forward,
But a renovate to new would take care of most of those things as well.
yeah, that was kind of my point.
Yes.
Um,
So when I say a school project, one of those two things would cover a majority of these concerns.
Yep.
Maybe not all, but a majority.
Okay, Stuart, I'm ready to look at year 4 with you.
let's see. Well, start. The first one is our fund balance is kind of doing okay there.
So far, so good.
Yep. So let's scroll to the top of year 4. Well, got to follow your spreadsheet now that changes have been made. So
What's that 265 up there? The note
265.
interest.
That was the old year 5 municipal
okay.
bond for everything.
Yep, that was the interest for the
Okay.
note. Yep, so we could take that out because oh, let's see, we have a note planned. So, yeah, we'll have to pay interest on the note. That's correct. So we have a $45 million note plus 750,000. Well, that's at least $245 in interest.
So if we're gonna assume for planning purposes a new school, we're still gonna try to ignore the hall school and center school projects.
That would make sense.
Gotta
I mean,
do
it would be kind of one or the other. I
one
mean,
or the other.
Yeah.
you wouldn't put 150,000 into, the elevator at hall school if, one, you're not gonna stay there, or two, if you are gonna redo the elevator, that would probably get lumped into some sort of renovation bond. And get rid of some of those, projects. And then the center school ones that turns into a town hall, they get to adopt those projects. They never disappear, they just show up somewhere else.
Then it becomes Erica's CIP request.
Yeah,
Well, so, and I think, Phil, we talked about depending on what was done with either building and what the projects were and how the town used them, you may or may not still need them, right? If you, let's just say center school and the town were to take over use of center school because the school wasn't. And you used it for town office buildings, you may not need all of it. And so maybe a wing you cut off and use for storage. You wouldn't necessarily need that new heating project done because you're not heating it in the same way you are classrooms. So some of those projects would fall off completely. And that's all just hypothetical. And
Yeah.
that was in, just talking about what some of those projects would look like or their necessity if it weren't still used as a school. So we'd have to go through them one by one to see what was still necessary in whatever capacity the building were going to be used as.
and those two big projects for the River Road Park, I mean, I've been a long-term supporter of that. And they got the field done before my kids got out of school, which I didn't think was gonna happen for quite a while. But between the turf and the lighting, that's a lot of money to do for a small town.
It's a heavily used park, though. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
it's the
absolutely.
one facility we have for our residents to use for any kind of recreation.
Yep.
I think they're both valid projects.
And as you know, some of the other requests will trickle in over the next couple of years to fill out what is now years 3, 4, and 5. That, some departments' operations don't fit well for long-term planning. anymore. Not as good as we would like from the CIP side, but there's things that come up, with a year or two notice that you didn't anticipate otherwise. So that generally starts to fill in some funding more that will gobble up whatever funding you have.
Are we in year 4?
Yes.
Yeah, we kind of just moved the
Okay.
school stuff from 4 to 5 and
So,
left the bond for the school in year 4. Um,
well, what we did by pushing everything off for Parks and Rec is a bottleneck of projects.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say never, but
No,
can you picture, 480,000 for turf for the soccer field?
Yeah, I just don't see it. I understand why they want it, but I just don't see that.
I just don't see them happening in the same year. That's what I don't see.
I don't see a multi-purpose turf field. I don't see us doing it. I don't see us having $500,000 for a turf field.
Yeah, I'd agree with Mike on that one.
It's no judgment on the quality of the idea. Just,
And in terms of lighting, I would have thought, at least back in the days when my kids were playing Little League, that the ball field, the baseball field would be the one up for lighting. Unless soccer has become a lot more popular than baseball, but I know the few towns we went to that had lights and could play night games. That was a very positive experience.
the other thing that may happen too is as we come back out of COVID, maybe rec has the opportunity to really get programs going and
They
maybe.
do. I think we got to remember that field can be used for, soccer, field hockey, flag football, lacrosse. There will be, especially, if we invest in a turf field with lighting, then there are multiple uses that field could be
Yeah,
used
so maybe
for.
they come back in a year or two and they say, hey, here's our new information. This is what we think the demand is, and this is what we can charge for some of these programs. And we can help pay for some of it.
Right.
And
And they have people using that field right now more than the baseball field. Our Little League program is really
Struggling.
struggling. I
That's a
think
nice way
they're
to put it,
struggling
right?
participation wise, they're struggling numbers wise.
Yeah.
And so this is, I think, why you don't see Parks and Rec coming and asking for lighting for the baseball field, but putting their efforts towards the field right now that is getting the most use, and where they could see more potential use going forward. So while maybe it falls off the plan for this year, I don't think we discourage them from
no,
continuing to have the discussion and bring it back.
in time
wanna-
change, 10 years ago, there was no talk about pickleball. Now pickleball's the hot thing. And 10 years from now, who knows what the hot sport's gonna be.
Relish ball.
Tennis used to be big, and I know some towns still maintain their tennis courts, but, that's something that would be requested.
Yeah, I was at a park a couple of months ago, just as the weather was cooling off, and they actually had converted 3/4 of their tennis courts to pickleball courts because there was so much demand for the pickleball and there was not for tennis.
Huh?
Do we incorporate money, dollars for whatever fire department additions we're still looking at and determining into a bigger note?
Line 129 has the one for Wellington
All
1.
right.
I don't think there was a dollar request from Lincoln Hill for the total amount of construction. He's usually got to do at least that $10,000 of planning to get a
Well,
rough
the
idea.
$10,000 was survey of the 25 old farms regardless of the rest of it. The 100,000, I think, was really the more direct to the new fire station.
Mhm.
And there had been at a time, there had been a larger number. And that was, I thought, I gotta go back through the pile. Hadn't Tom sent in a request for like year 5 or maybe not? I'm going back through them now.
I don't think this year.
Yeah, you're right, Mike. There was one previously.
I don't think there was one this
I
year.
think it was 3.7 or something like that.
Something like, yeah, yep, something like that.
Um,
I'm going through the paper requests.
and I assume the school building committee is aware of all these pending projects for the schools.
It hasn't come up in our meeting yet. We
Okay.
haven't gotten that far yet. No.
Um,
I can't say individually, they may not be aware, if they're following Board of Education or these minutes, but as a part of that committee, we have not had that conversation yet.
I don't see the paper request. I thought,
There was no
There
request this
wasn't one
year,
this year.
but there was one in years past.
right, yes, I agree.
Well, I can pull it last year.
But it's up-
No, I can't.
It's up to each department head to, submit annually
Yes.
what they
Correct.
going, things come, things go. And,
Line 25, that 245 payment has to carry into year 5 also, right?
In year 5, it's a,
You
it's a,
had the
um,
Oh,
bond
no,
payment.
never mind. That's
bond.
right. It moves to a bond. I'm sorry.
yeah, that's principal and interest
Yes.
in the payment.
Yep, sorry. I was thinking already into payments.
Ouch. Can you scroll down the page, Donna? Just we need a source for that open space money.
I'd probably just keep that with the local funds.
Yep.
Just kind of comes in and gets slid over to their fund.
Yes, it does. It gets transferred over.
And then we've got that $100,000 and their parking lot.
Does the soccer lighting go to year 5 as well? I'm not saying no, but we're not saying yes.
Yeah, I mean, the advantage of moving it out to year 5 is you say, listen, when Soccer United or whatever it is builds their 2 fields over the next couple of years, let's see how the demand goes.
Yeah, like you said, it could go up or it could go down.
It might bring a lot of activity into the area, in which case the demand is there and it gets funded, or it might take up all the customers and our field isn't even needed.
Yep.
And then they rethink what our field is used for. Like Erica was saying, there may be of the other uses for the same field. Maybe there's something better fitted.
Guys, I have a work thing that I have to go to at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
So I have to jump.
Okay.
Okay.
But
I think we made good progress tonight.
yeah, I think you guys got it.
So we've been a lot worse shape in years.
Yeah. All right. Well, bye.
Okay.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Bye,
Christina. Stuart, would you like to move a couple of these things to the reserve?
Yes, at least 135.
Okay,
I mean, 117 is not going to support 100,000 coming out of it like that, nor would it really support the 80.
The reality is that, depending on how this planning goes, hopefully you don't need both of those. Hopefully you're either making progress on what's going to happen for a fire station, or you're repairing the parking lot and staying there.
right.
But that's 4 years out right now.
While Donna's working her magic, I would suggest that Public Works carefully check their bridge inspection reports. I don't want to go looking for trouble, and I'm
Yeah,
certainly not carte blanche to open up the checkbook and say, let's go fix a dozen bridges. But we should be aware of,
we are.
Public Works should be aware of what's out there and what's coming and what isn't. And
The end of December, we met with Carl and took a look at the bridge report. So Troy will be working on planning for that. And that's why, Mike, I said the Depot Road was not in that report. So that begs the question, who does it belong to? And I don't think it's us because it wasn't on our bridge report.
but who typically, at least what I've been seeing down in the Coventry, Andover, Columbia area where they've had a few bridges that they've had to redo, it's a 50-50 deal for each town. So. it
And I
should go
believe in the
somebody.
70s, that's how that one was done. Yep.
Yeah, so we will look. That's the only one that's not on the report that we've had. Because I don't know. We'll see. What's in at the end of this plan, Donna, in the general reserve fund?
At the end of year 5, 284,000.
I didn't look last week.
Erica, I don't know if this helps you at all. If you want to just write down a note, I just did a quick Google search on that bridge. And there's a Hartford Current article from 1994 saying the state rebuilt the bridge in 1993. So that would have been probably 20 years after it was replaced in the 70s.
Did the state get involved because it's going over the Willimantic River?
I have no idea. I mean, this is just a quick Hartford Current article, and maybe it's not even accurate. It says the bridge carrying South River Road number 2 across the Willimantic River to Depot Road near South Willington Village will be closed for inspection. DOT will close the bridge at 9 a.m. The bridge was rebuilt by the state about a year ago, which that surprises me a little bit, but.
It does, but that's a happy surprise if it's their bridge and not ours.
Yep, they win.
I like that.
Uh-oh. Excuse me for 1 minute.
You remember, Stuart, was it Mahaliak's truck or Desiato's truck or something?
I think it was Mahaliak said he got the front wheels over and the back end dropped in.
Yeah. Yep.
And then they had the guy that drowned on the canoe going through the temporary pipes.
Yes. I know I've read about it. Maybe it was in the Willington history book. I know I've read about it somewhere.
Sorry, I had a battery issue. Computer almost went dead, but still on our recording. So we're not putting very much into the reserve fund in years 4 and 5. Correct. I'm looking at that right.
Yep, that is correct.
Correct.
Like I said, year 5 is usually the catch-all, whether we like it or not. And but we have a couple potential outs with that in terms of the accumulated repairs at the 2 existing schools. I mean, just looking at that, the west wing ventilation, $500,000. Like, oh, that's a killer.
Yep. So for purposes of this plan, we need to assign them a fund source, or
No, I
kind of
think
let them fall off and say what we're,
you know, Donna, you're the one who usually writes up the nice blurb
Well,
that goes with this.
well, don't hold that's going to be CIP's responsibility, Stuart. I think that's
Oh,
Donna
okay.
has done it the last couple, but it was always the chairman's responsibility. So,
Sure, I'll take last year's and copy it, but
but you know, for purposes of our plan, is our intention, the way it's laid out here, it looks like our intention is to bond out a new school project
or
from the document, right? From the way we
or,
funded,
or
but I think
right
our
in year,
intention is
in
one
year
or the other.
4 and year 5 is the plan B, that if it's turns into a school renovation project,
Right.
most of those, if not all of them, depending on timing, of course,
But if
would.
there is no renovation, or if things stay status quo, and that's what comes out of this,
Then all that
committee.
year 5 stuff will come back into probably year 4.
right?
You know, by year 4, you should know what you're doing by then.
So I think part of the plan, the written narrative of the plan needs to reflect that, because looking at the document, it looks as though CIP is saying we fully support a new plan, but we're planning for one or the other, either all the repairs in one or the new school in
Yep.
some sort of bond.
Yeah, so the 3 scenarios are a new school, a major renovation, or we absorb all those projects ourselves and do them as best we can.
And are we saying the best way to absorb them all ourselves is in one shot and bond that?
Well,
kind of,
they'll
I
be
guess, in a
there
lump
and
out?
they may trip, you know, at that point you start to reevaluate them if that's the route we're going of, you know, what's most important out of that bunch. You know, there may be some safety concerns. There's probably going to be other projects that show up between now and year 5.
I agree. I just think for this year, for the purpose of the narrative of this plan, that we articulate what our,
Yep.
You know, what our plan is, because the narrative as written against the document right now would be that, you know, we're planning a new renovation, a new school building, just based on the line items.
And
So I
just
think it's
based,
important that we articulate what the conversation is out of this committee.
and just based on the information we have as of today.
Right. Does that make sense, Mike? You know, that we say in writing A or B, where, you know, our plan is to support one or the other. We're not looking at doing both, which is why we, you know, haven't assigned things. So do we lump them all together in one?
Yeah, I
All
think,
of those projects aren't $45 million. It'll be considerably less.
right, because there's the reimbursement and there's the one or the other thing.
Right, and depending on the scope of work for your major renovation, if you go down that road. Would you
Right.
include all of those in there, or maybe you'd rip half that stuff out and start from scratch?
Yeah, I think it's reasonable to say that the vision of this program right now is to show potential projects in the future likely to be funded, but not necessarily all of them, and to understand that some funds, that some projects are duplicitous, and as the planning goes on, it'll either be the A or the B. I'm sure you can find a better way to say it than I just did.
Take that and articulate it into something fancy.
Yeah, take that and articulate that.
All right, is that everything in year 5, or we still have? Oh, we still have the soccer lighting, has nothing, and they did just the open space.
I think we've done a pretty fair job with 1 through 4 sticking under 700.
So we'll work on our ever popular year 5 next Wednesday. And hopefully vote on year 1 and or the whole plan.
I think some years it depends. If we're not done with years 2 through 5, we vote on year 1 just to get it to the selectmen. But if we have the whole thing, quote, done as best we can for now, we can vote on the whole thing. Erica, do you need one or both of those votes tonight?
No, we
Or-
can't vote tonight. We don't have a quorum.
There you go.
Yeah.
Carrie joined us, but Christina left us.
Yeah. So,
Donna, you'll send the new version out.
Yes.
Donna, thank you for
Awesome work
working
as always,
on the
Donna.
fly with us. That can't be easy while sharing your screen in a tiny fashion. All right, is that, if that's it, I would make a Stuart, unless you had something else or anyone else did, Carrie.
Go for it, Eric. I'm ready with the second.
All right, I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, same time next week.